Hello everyone, this is Remlays from 40k Theories, and welcome to this new episode of 40k Lore for Newcomers. For this episode, we will begin taking a brief look at the timeline of Warhammer 40,000. As always, this is a brief overview for certain events, and as such, they will have in-depth videos dedicated to them within the future. In addition, this video series will focus more on humanity's actions throughout the timeline, though certain important Xenos events will also be documented throughout. So, without further ado, let's begin. While there are many contradicting sources detailing the exact time frame of events, resulting in some potential inaccuracies regarding certain dates and events, the following account is a rough outline of the current timeline from the ancient past to the 30th millennium. The ancient past. Shortly after the birth of the universe, the ethereal and godlike creatures known as the Khitan would evolve, becoming the first sentient beings believed to ever exist. Date unknown. The race known simply as the Old Ones would make their appearance known, and would begin cultivating life upon many worlds. The Old Ones would also begin establishing the subspace network known as the Webway, allowing them to travel across the galaxy quickly and effortlessly. The Necrontyr would evolve, and would eventually begin colonizing the stars, creating a vast galactic empire. The Necrontyr would suffer from a series of internecine conflicts, so in an attempt to end these civil wars, the Necrontyr ruler, the Silent King, would declare war upon the Old Ones, hoping that this war would unify his people behind a common purpose. Despite their superior numbers and technology, the Necrontyr would be defeated time and time again by the Old Ones' superior psychic might, as well as their access to the Webway. These losses would create a series of schisms throughout Necrontyr society, leading to another series of civil wars. The Khitan would offer their allegiance to the Necrontyr against the Old Ones, promising them victory and immortality. The Silent King would agree to the terms of the Khitan, and physical bodies would be forged for them, while the Necrontyr would surrender their mortality, replacing their organic bodies with metallic shells. The Necrontyr henceforth become known as the Necrons. Circa 65 million years ago, the war between the Necrons and the Old Ones would begin again with greater intensity and ferocity. The Old Ones in response would create many other races to serve as soldiers in this conflict, including the Aeldari, Jakero, and Krork. The warp begins to grow more tumultuous as a result of the Old Ones and their creation's actions, emotions, and use of psychic power against the Khitan. Entities such as the Enslavers begin to appear, swarming like a plague of locusts. This combined with the losses incurred during their war with the Necrons results in the Old Ones becoming extinct. The Necrons, led by the last of the Silent Kings, would turn upon their Khitan masters, shattering them into shards and imprisoning and enslaving them, with the Khitan known as the Flayer being utterly destroyed. The Flayer's destruction instills the curse of the Flayer virus upon certain members of the Necron race. Fearing retribution from the Old One's creations, the Silent King then orders that the Necrons retreat to their tomb worlds and enter a period of stasis known as the Great Sleep. The Silent King then goes into a self-imposed exile. The Aeldari would inherit much of the Old One's technology, including the Webway, whilst the Krork would begin their devolution into a race known as the Orcs. The emotions and psychic echoes of those races created by the Old Ones would begin to gestate within the warp, and would begin coalescing into beings that would one day become known as the Chaos Gods. Circa 500,000 years ago, the demon Draknien is created by the emotional turmoil caused by humanity's first act of murder. Circa 8700 BC, the first psykers would begin to appear within the human species, known amongst their kind as the Shamans. When the Shamans begin to lose their mastery over the energies of the warp and learn of the slow creation of the Chaos Gods, the Shamans undertake a ritual to create a being that will be powerful enough to challenge them, in order to protect their species from demonic predation. Circa 8000 BC, the future Emperor of Mankind is born within a fishing village upon the banks of the Sakaya River, believed by some to be the result of the ritual performed by the aforementioned Shamans. M1. The period of time known as the Age of Terra begins. The Emperor would battle against a shard of the Khitan known as the Void Dragon. This Khitan would prove so powerful that the Emperor could not destroy it, and so he had it imprisoned. It will one day become known as the Dragon of Mars, as well as giving rise to the legend of St. George and the Dragon. M2. The Chaos Gods of Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle have all awoken to full consciousness within the warp by the end of Terra's Middle Ages. M3. Humanity begins to make massive leaps in scientific understanding and achievement. Mars is terraformed, and humanity begins to colonize the Sol system using sublight spacecraft, establishing colonies upon Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune. Humanity begins to learn about the possibilities of the warp. M15. The Dark Age of technology begins. Mankind reaches its peak in technological development and scientific advancement. The Aeldari Empire also reaches its height, holding sway over a large portion of the galaxy. M18. Humanity develops their first warp drives, allowing them to explore and spread across the galaxy at a much faster rate than previously thought possible. Geller fields are invented soon after to protect spacecraft from the dangers of warp travel. The navigator gene is artificially produced, leading to the creation of the abhuman strain known as navigators. These navigators allow ships to make more controlled warp jumps and traverse the depths of warp space for longer periods of time. Humanity makes contact with other Xenos races, and the first alien wars begin. Psykers begin slowly reappearing within the human species. The Aeldari established the port city of Camorra within the bowels of the Webway to serve as a primary transport node. The Xenos race begins to grow more decadent and hedonistic, particularly upon their homeworlds within the galactic northwest. Circa M18. The Emperor travels to the world of Molech and discovers a Chaos Gate. He then enters it before re-emerging a few moments later, his already potent psychic abilities having become enhanced to a godlike degree. M19. The Navigator families become strong enough politically to become independent of the cartels that had previously claimed dominance over them. M22. The standard template construct is developed and perfected, allowing human colonies to develop all the technologies that they should ever need. This allows humanity to expand their influence throughout the galaxy at an even faster rate. Psykers become officially recognized by science as more and more begin to evolve throughout the various human colony worlds. Humanity makes unprecedented advancements in the field of artificial intelligence, creating self-aware robotic constructs known as the Men of Iron. M23. The Men of Iron rebel against their human masters, leading to a near-apocalyptic war known as the Cybernetic Revolt. The Men of Iron would be mostly destroyed during the rebellion, with those surviving specimens imprisoned within great stasis vaults. Following this war, artificial intelligence was outlawed by humanity, having been redubbed Abominable Intelligence. This would lead to the development of cybernetic creations known as servitors, fusions of biology and machinery as opposed to true AI. M24. Malkador the Sigillite is born. M25. The Age of Strife begins. The fourth major chaos god, Slanesh, begins to take form within the warp thanks to the self-indulgent actions of the Aeldari Empire. This creates an unparalleled number of warp storms, cutting off many planets from one another, leading to centuries of isolation, where the majority of these worlds would develop their own unique cultures. Many worlds still begin to degenerate and begin to experience periods of anarchy and civil war. Trade and communication between many worlds is cut off, and warp travel is made all but impossible. Xenos races such as the Orcs begin to launch a series of brutal raids upon many of these isolated worlds. Some of these human colonies would begin to evolve into new strains and species, due to being stranded within their new environments and unable to rely on previous resources brought in from off-world. This would then lead to the creation of various abhuman species such as Ogrins, Ratlings, and Squats. The Squat worlds manage to maintain communication with one another, and begin organising their mutual defence. These worlds colonised by the ancestors of the Squats become known within their sagas as the Home Worlds. Civilization upon Terra begins to degenerate and break down, eventually leading to the rise of the techno-barbarian warlords. Circa late M28, the Emperor reveals himself to humanity. With his legions of Thunder Warriors and the golden-clad warriors of the Custodes, the Emperor begins the Terra Unification Wars, conquering large portions of the globe and uniting many of the scattered tribes and nations under his rule. The Emperor begins the spread of his imperial truth, and begins a systematic destruction of all religious institutions upon Terra. Malcador the Sigillite joins the Emperor in his campaign, serving as his closest advisor and confidant. He eventually convinces the Emperor to adopt the title of Emperor. M29. The Emperor begins making preparations for the Primarch project. The battle for Anatole Hive upon Terra takes place, resulting in the death of the soldier and psyker known as John Grammaticus. Grammaticus is then resurrected by Slaudar, an Aeldari autarch in service to the mysterious organisation known as the Cabal. As a result of Grammaticus's resurrection, he is transformed into a perpetual and becomes an agent of the Cabal. The Aeldari grow more and more degenerate and self-gratifying. More individuals who oppose the degradation of their society begin to make their presence known. Many who oppose this downfall of their civilization undertake a great exodus, settling upon primitive worlds and adopting a simpler but harder way of life. These beings would become known as Exodites. Others who opposed such hedonistic behaviour throughout the Empire, seeing that such behaviour could only lead to doom and disaster, flee from their homeworlds upon great arcships known as craft worlds. Other Aeldari still, such as the Harlequins, begin fleeing into the depths of the webway. M30. The last church upon Terra is destroyed by the Emperor's forces. The Primarchs are created within the Emperor's gene labs, resulting in 20 beings fashioned from the Emperor's own genetic material. As the infant Primarchs grew within their gestation pods, a warp rift would open within the Emperor's laboratories and scatter the nascent Primarchs throughout the galaxy, depositing them upon different worlds where the majority would be adopted and raised by human parents. The Emperor would use the knowledge gleaned from the project, along with reserves of the Primarch's own genetic material, to create the first Space Marines. The majority of the Thunder Warriors would be slaughtered by the Custodes in order to make way for the Space Marines, though some would escape. The Aeldari Empire falls and Slaanesh is born. Her birth tears a hole within the very fabric of reality, creating the warp rift known as the Eye of Terror, situated where the heart of the Aeldari Empire once stood. Billions of Aeldari are slain instantly as their souls are consumed by the Chaos God. Only the Craft Worlds, Exodite Worlds, and the realm of Camorra seemingly remain untouched. Those worlds at the epicenter become sucked into the warp and become transformed into Crone Worlds. As a result of her birth, the warp storms cease, making interstellar travel possible once more for humanity. The Age of Imperium begins. The Emperor begins making preparations for the Great Crusade, and orders the construction of the Astronomicon as well as the 20 Space Marine legions. The Space Marines of the 7th, 13th and 16th legions pacify Luna, Terra's moon, annihilating all resistance by those upon it in just 6 hours. The Emperor makes planetfall upon Mars. An alliance between the Emperor's Imperium and the Mechanicum Empire of Mars is forged under the Treaty of Olympus, providing the Emperor's forces weaponry, technology, and manufactorums in exchange for a number of Navigator-strain abhumans, allowing the forces of Mars to traverse the galaxy once more. The Great Crusade begins to push past the fringes of the Sol system, and the Emperor is reunited with the first of his rediscovered gene sons, Horus Lupercal of the Lunar Wolves Legion. A few decades later, the Emperor becomes reunited with Leman Russ of the Space Wolves, one of the Lost Primarchs, and Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands. A gene seed flaw known as the Blight begins to afflict the warriors of the 3rd Legion. Thanks to the combination of the flaw and near constant duty upon the front lines, only 200 warriors of the 3rd Legion survive by the time that they eventually become reunited with their Primarch. The Primarch Rabute Guilliman, through a combination of diplomatic and militaristic actions, establishes an empire of 500 worlds. The Imperium attempts to bring the squat homeworlds into compliance, but face fierce resistance. These conflicts grow so fierce that the Imperium is forced to develop the Mark III pattern of power armor as a result. Treaties are eventually formed to end the conflict between the squats and the Imperium. The Emperor next reunites with Fulgrim of the Emperor's Children, Vulcan of the Salamanders, and Rogel Dawn of the Imperial Fists. Thanks to Fulgrim's reunion with his legion, future recruits into the Legion become less susceptible to the Blight. Rogel Dawn gifts the Emperor with an ancient starship known as the Phalanx as a gift, but the Emperor graciously declines, instead decreeing that such a vessel should serve as the 7th Legion's flagship. The Primarchs Rabute Guilliman of the Ultramarines, Magnus the Red of the Thousand Suns, and Sanguinius of the Blood Angels are reunited with their respective legions. The 500-world empire of Guilliman is christened the Realm of Ultramar, and is brought into the Imperial fold. The Primarch Lionel Johnson is found living wild within the forests of Caliban by the Knights of the Order. Johnson is taken in by the knight known as Luther, who trains the Primarch in the art of combat, as well as educating the Primarch in numerous subjects. Lion soon rises to Supreme Commander of the Order, with Luther as his second in command, and the Knights would wage a crusade to purge their world of the great beasts that plague the forests of Caliban. Angron of the World Eaters is found by a slaver upon the world of Nuceria. The Primarch has most of his brain replaced with machinery known as the Butcher's Nails, amplifying his aggression to nigh impossible levels before the Primarch is forced into the life of a pit fighter. The Emperor then becomes reunited with Lionel Johnson of the Dark Angels, Perturabo of the Iron Warriors, Mortarion of the Death Guard, and Lorgar of the Wordbearers. Luther of the Order and Lorgar's adoptive father Cor Theron are subjected to surgical alterations in order to join the Space Marine legions for the Great Crusade. Lionel Johnson eventually names Luther as the Steward of Caliban, leaving guardianship of the world to his friend. The seeds of jealousy are sown within Luther, and many of the Dark Angels who are forced into this exile upon Caliban. The Primarch Conrad Kurz single-handedly wages a campaign of terror upon the crime-ridden world of Nostramo, mercilessly slaughtering any who break the law. Within a few short years, the crime level within the city of Nostramo Quintus drops to near zero out of fear. The Emperor is then reunited with Jagatai Khan of the White Scars and Conrad Kurz of the Night Lords, who forsook the name Kurz and instead declared himself the Night Haunter. Angron leads a slave rebellion upon Nuceria, ransacking dozens of cities. As he prepared his last stand, the Emperor would arrive to return Angron to his legion, but Angron refused to join the Emperor's crusade. The Emperor would teleport Angron aboard his legion's flagship against his will, where in his anger he would slay many officers of his legion before being calmed by 8th Captain Khan. The world of Molech is brought into compliance. Those Primarchs who took part in the campaign have their memories of the conflict sealed away by the Emperor himself. Corvus Corax of the Raven Guard and the second lost Primarch would be recovered by the Emperor shortly thereafter. The dueling campaign, orchestrated by the Dark Angels and Space Wolves, is completed. Russ and Johnson engage in a short duel following its conclusion, leading to a tradition between the Dark Angels and Space Wolves to reenact this duel whenever their warriors meet again. The curse of the Flesh Change is seemingly cured within the Thousand Suns Legion, though this would later prove false and ostensibly cost the Primarch Magnus the Red his eye. The Rangdan Xenocides take place. The Xenos race known as the Rangdan inflict devastating casualties upon the Emperor's armies, including that of at least 50,000 Space Marines, before eventually being driven to extinction. The Alpha Legion makes their first documented appearance during this time, providing aid to Imperial forces. The two lost Primarchs would have their names and deeds erased from Imperial records for some unknown transgression, with some claiming that they were executed, while others maintaining that they were banished. The remaining 18 Primarchs each swear an oath to never speak of their lost brothers again, and all information regarding their erasure from history is lost. The Primarch Alpharius Omegon of the Alpha Legion is reunited with Imperial forces, though many contradicting accounts about the exact circumstances of this reunion exist. Sickened by events that occurred during his absence, Conrad Kurz would order that his homeworld of Nostramo be destroyed. The Raven Guard bring the Istvan system into compliance. Major Vardus Pral of the 11th Lastrian Rifles Imperial Army Regiment is appointed as the planetary governor of Istvan III. The Blood Angels and the Lunar Wolves undertake a joint campaign to exterminate a Xenos race known as the Nephilim upon the world of Melchior. Horus discovers the gene seed flaw of the Blood Angels Legion, the Red Thirst, but makes a vow to Sanguinius to never reveal the information of the flaw to the Emperor. Governor Vardus Pral forsakes his oath to the Emperor, and has Istvan III secede from the Imperium. The Wordbearers Legion brings the world of Kur into compliance. The populace begins to worship the Emperor as a god and the Wordbearers as his angels, and great temples and cathedrals are erected in their name. 6 decades later, the Ultramarines Legion would lay waste to the city of Monarchia from orbit. Lorgar, the Primarch of the Wordbearers, along with his legion, would be publicly reprimanded by the Emperor in front of Malcador the Sigillite and Rabute Guilliman, with the Emperor stating that he would not tolerate such worship or idolization. Lorgar would then begin a pilgrimage to find beings that not only deserved worship, but in fact demanded it, and in secret, after travelling to the world of Cadia and heading into the warp rift known as the Eye of Terra, he and his legion would fall to the worship of Chaos. And that concludes this portion of the Warhammer 40,000 timeline. Join us next time for events occurring from M31 onwards. If you liked this video, consider supporting us on Patreon for more content. To those new to 40k, we hope you learned something. So leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.